So, Martin Ruhe, thank you so much for joining our cinematography panel. We're going to talk to you about this brand new Netflix film, The Midnight Sky. And I was lucky enough to be one of the first people to see it. So it's sort of extraordinary. I mean, I think the easy way of describing it is kind of gravity meets The Revenant. You said that you felt like you were making a survival story, but that it also felt like you were in one yourself. How so?
Well, when we started the film, we started shooting in Iceland, and we were basically shooting on a glacier. We went into real snowstorms. It was freaking cold. We were in a real snowstorm, basically. And we went into it a few times, and then we had our actors in it. We had handheld cameras in there, and it was basically not so much a choice how we shot it. It was more like, how can we even shoot it in there?
And so how do you light a snowstorm? I mean,
you don't light it. There's no wind. So whatever the winds on that glacier, the winds in Iceland can be so strong that you think about what you would like to do and all of that, and then reality hits you, and you just take a camera up there and shoot what's there in the ice storm. So we spent like 2 weeks shooting in Iceland, and that's how we started the shoot.
And like you said, you're on the second biggest glacier in Europe. You've got George Clooney, big time movie star, but he's also the director and the producer. So did one of those hats, did his producer hat say, we can't afford 2 weeks here, Martin, you've got to get this in a week? Did that part of him ever come through when you were shooting?
No, it was clear. So we had two very different settings. We had the Arctic, and we had a spaceship in space, and some scenes on Earth. It was very different approaches, but we started in Iceland, and George was basically, he wanted to go there. He wanted it to feel real. He, in some of those scenes, his beard is really frozen, and we had to stop sometimes to shoot to get eyes off his eyebrows to see his eyes even. So he was all up for it, and he wanted it to look real. At the same time, we had to bear in mind that the Iris played by Kaylin is only 7 years old. So there's an element of real danger there, and crazy logistics. So. But we wanted to get as much as we can on the glacier for real, in the real environment.
And see, I mean, you've got on the glacier, you've got on the snowmobile, in the water up there. I mean, it's just extraordinary. And then you're back in the observatory. So you mentioned handheld. So you were, because I know this was shot with the hope of it being on IMAX. Does that mean different cameras throughout, or the same camera?
No, we shot our main cameras were two 65mm cameras, and we used that mainly. And on the glacier, when we had handheld, that's 65mm cameras. There's some stuff in the spaceship when it's very small spaces, or some of the spacewalk I wanted to shoot with Steadicam, and we had to rotate the camera constantly. So we couldn't do that with 65. We switched to Alexa Mini LFs. And a couple of times. The underwater stuff we shot in the studio.
Okay, and that's Shepperton Studios, sort of famed studio in England. So what was it like to go from Iceland for weeks on end? So you're in the studio, and you're shooting a whole different film. I mean, like I said, it's the spaceship, but it's that same sense of desolation, isn't it? That the character in Clooney's character in the Arctic is by himself. These few people on the spaceship. How do you bring that sense of desolation when you're shooting, like, say, on the spaceship?
Well, one of the things was one of the reasons I shot 65 is we have these gigantic vistas, and then we have very intimate and a very small story. So I wanted to be close to the people. I loved we did tests with 65, and I love how you have to get the camera close and shoot on lenses with wider field of view. But since you're 65, they feel longer, and it's a very beautiful format, and that's what we wanted to do. Part of it was that we thought it would be IMAX later, but part of it was also that we just fell in love with those lenses and then the format of 65.
Yeah, and then you said there's this third element where you shot in the Canary Islands, and that feels. I mean, there's a lushness about that setting, but there's this romantic undercurrent in those scenes. And so just I'm curious how you achieved that effect, because it feels, yet again, it's the flashbacks, but it feels so fresh.
I don't know. We did a little bit. The flashbacks, we wanted to feel, it's young Augustine. It's a younger version of George. And it's his life. It's where he takes his decisions. So we had these big, gigantic telescopes in the background, and they were so beautiful. And it's also the air. The Canary Islands is like there's telescopes on there which are only in 2 or 3 other places in the world, like Hawaii or Canary Islands. They're at 6,000 feet height, and the amazing technology, and that was our background to show that Augustine, George's character, is always looking for the stars, but he doesn't see the people next to him. So we wanted to express that. We found that these locations were the best for that.
And then in terms of seeing people, I felt like on the spaceship, that crew, there were only a few of them, but it felt so intimate. I mean, there was those. I was surprised how big the space station was, and yet you were able to shoot these scenes, and the intimacy, like between Felicity Jones's character and David Oyelowo, very small, quiet moments. Is that challenging when you're shooting with these kinds of cameras that you had to achieve that intimacy?
It was challenging because our sets was basically on the spaceship. We had 2 parts, 2 halves. So we had the personal quarters, and we had the command room, and then the communication pod, and where they repair things and stuff. So and both of them were built into cocoons, so it was like a 3-story high set. And it was very tiny, actually. It was not as big as it seems, maybe, but we put, we put miles of LED strips into it. We had every room basically lit by itself with all the practical lighting we built into the set. That allowed us to, with little effort, to shoot everywhere. We would just have an excellent desk operator, and we could change the colors from RGB. We had RGBW LEDs, so we could change it anytime, anywhere we wanted. So when it's, also, I wasn't quite sure before we started shooting if we wanted to do more warmer tones or cooler tones, or if we wanted to have certain areas of the ship have different colors. So a little bit of that we bit into the ship, and then once we started shooting, it became very quickly very obvious. This has to be this color. This has to be that color, and then also there were the sets also needed to be able to do light transitions. When they go into their memories, when they have the pre-recorded memories, we did a lot of light changes in very small areas to support what the host had to provide us later with. And we combined different sets and all of that. It was quite complicated at times.
And yet when you're watching it, I mean, I'm just the emotion of the story, you don't obviously as the viewer see the complication. Is there one moment in the film that you're particularly proud of that you achieved? Was there something that was such a challenge and you nailed it? That's something that you can...
There's quite a few, actually. I like, for example, when we designed the spacewalk, obviously there's a lot of CGI there, but we basically, the post had, the visual effects department had provided animation, a rough animation, and we went through the script and They gave me a virtual camera, so I would go into a meeting room and there are tape marks on the floor, and then I would say, okay, give me this lens, and then I would do the shots. So a lot of that spacewalk we designed by me practicing with an iPad and then shooting it virtually, and then we turned that into reality. We could give some people, for example, we could give them positions where to program their wire work and all of that. That was actually quite amazing, and that worked out well.
Certainly it was amazing to watch. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll talk a bit later on together with the rest of everyone. Thank you again, Martin.
Thank you.